All right, so a little bit of pre-quiz review. Critical numbers. We could ask you to find critical numbers. That's where f prime is 0 or f prime is undefined. Again, most of the time it's 0, but you got to remember to look for undefined because sometimes it happens. And those give us, just like we've said a couple times, those give us our pool of potential extrema. And then we do a table to figure out the extrema. I've done this flow chart 5 times today. Now what we learned today was that you could also detour into the first derivative test to figure out if they're just the top of a hill or the bottom of a valley, but that's not on the quiz. On the quiz we're just talking absolute min and max, so a table will accomplish that for us. Oh, almost forgot to say, when we do the table, we need to include the endpoints. What we did today didn't involve endpoints, it was just intervals. In fact, there weren't endpoints, we just went forever both directions. But for for absolute extrema, usually we give you an interval, and so don't forget to include the endpoints. We've seen this before. In fact, this might have been the exact one. What's goofy about that? What do we have to know about that? There's a cusp at x equals 3. So that means it's not differentiable at x equals 3. Which might mean you can't use the MVT, the mean value theorem, depending on what the interval is. So be careful. If the interval was from 5 to 10, you'd be okay. But if the interval included 3, you couldn't use mean value theorem. And again, no idea what that looks like, but I do know there's a cusp at 3. Let's talk about rolls and MVT. Rolls had to be continuous on the closed, differentiable on the open. And what was that extra criteria that rolls has that MVT doesn't have? Right, the endpoints, the y value at the endpoints have to equal. In fact, that was the very first thing we did on that worksheet yesterday. You put 2 y points that had the same value, and therefore you ensured that rolls happened. And if all that stuff is true, then somewhere the derivative is equal to 0. And your usual job is to find the somewhere, find C. Mean value theorem, a little more generic, continuous on the closed, differentiable on the open, and I don't have to have the same endpoints. The conclusion is, so if that's true, the conclusion is, in words, the calculus slope equals the algebra slope. The instantaneous rock equals the average rock. And I'm thinking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson again. So f prime of c equals good old algebra. But again, I don't have this memorized as the MVT. I have memorized calculus slope equals algebra slope. And I know what algebra slope is. So there's the algebra slope. And somewhere in there is the calculus slope. And again, your job is usually to find where that happens. Okay, now I think we're ready for the quiz. It's find critical points, locate absolute extrema, which would mean find critical points and test endpoints. Determine if roles applies and then apply it if it works. Another, determine if roles applies and apply it if it works. And then it just says apply the mean value theorem. So that means it works. If it doesn't say test it, then you can just go with it. All right, online people, your thing is available and you should be ready to go. Again, open notes, so whenever you're ready to take it, just do it. Send it and then submit it.